Hey there, Lorenzo here. In this video I will show you how to deploy a simple server using AWS and how to connect to that server from our own computer. Ready? Let's get started. We are here in the AWS website and we need to launch the VM instance. So I'm going to go here into services, compute, and that is an EC2. And we're going to stay within the free tier version. I'm going to launch the instance. Let's call this AWS simple server. I'm going to select the image. I'm going to go for the Ubuntu, and that's within the free tier. When it comes to the instance type, I'm going to select t2.micro, which is again within the free tier. The key pair, this is for the SSH authentication for remote login. I'm going to go ahead and create a new pair. I'm going to call this AWS simple AWS Python demo. I'm going to select the .pem format. I'm going to create the pair. Let's go ahead and save that. One thing that we need to make sure is that this is a read-only file and that we are the only owners. So let's look at that. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. In here I'm going to make that read-only, and then I'm going to make sure that I'm the only owner. Okay, that's done. So looking at the network settings, this is fine. You know, we want to allow SSH from anywhere because that's how we are going to manage the server. Configuration storage, we don't need to care about that. And then the advanced details, we can leave that as with the default values. So I'm going to launch the instance, and this will take a few seconds. In the meantime, we can take a look at what the client server application is for these demos. We see that the state is pending. So let's go ahead and look at this. So let me launch a new terminal. We have server and client side code. If we look at the server code right here, it is a very simple server that the only thing that it does, it takes a message from the client, it converts that into uppercase, and it sends back the message. If we look at the client side, the only thing that it does, it prompts the user to input a message. And we can see this in action. So let's first start the server.py. I'm going to, let me clear this. There we go. So if I now do Python client and I pass a message, hey there, we see that the server converts that to uppercase and it sends the message back. And I can repeat this many times. Hey there again. And we see that we have the message. One caveat here is that when we look at the server IP, this is the local host. So this is just my computer communicating within itself. What we want is for this to be available to the public. And that's where we need a cloud provider such as AWS. So let's check and see if the instance is ready. Okay, great. So we have this running. So now, what we need to do is to connect to that server, and that is where SSH comes into play. SSH is the protocol that will allow us to communicate and manage our server remotely. When it comes to SSH, you see here that I'm using a Windows machine. It is much more easier with Mac and Linux because you already have an SSH client. By default, it comes with it, but with Windows we need to either install it or we can use WSL or Git bash. So that's what I'm going to do in this case. I'm going to use Git bash. So the command that we need to run is, let me look at my notes here, but the idea is that we're going to run the command SSH. We're going to pass the path to our .pem, that's where we have the SSH key. Then we have the username and the public IP address. So that with our, in our case, that would be, if we replace this, so this will be, and I need to change this to make it work with Git bash Unix. So let's look at that. The username, this is Ubuntu, and the public IP address is this right here. So let's see, let's run this in Git. Let's see. Let's do yes. Nice, and that worked. And we see right here that we are managing the server. So I can take a look at the server, right? I can say, I can look at the directory. We don't have anything there yet. So that we can create a directory, simple server. Now let's go there, simple server, and we're going to transfer the files. But first we need to change this, right? Because this was working on localhost, but we need to now point it to the remote server. So the first thing that we need to do is change this IP address. So we're going to look at the instance ID. Let's focus on this for a moment. Here we have a public IP address and we have a private one. When it comes to the server only understands the private. This public IP address is for us whenever we want to connect with the server. But we need to bind the server to an IP address, and that will be the private one. So I'm going to copy that number here and save that. I'm going to, let's kill this terminal, we don't need that anymore. But on the client side, we need to use the public address. So I'm going to put this here. And the port number, we're going to keep it the same, 12,000. So we need to now transfer the file. And we are going to use SCP, which is a secure protocol. The command for that looks similar to the one we used previously, but let me just copy it from my notes. So the idea here is that the command is as follows. We have SCP, we have again the SSH key file. We need to specify which file we want to copy, and again the host name, IP address, and the destination path. So if we change this to our example, this will look like this. So we have SCP, again we need the SSH key, so let me change that. So which file do we want? Again, we want this file right here. So let me get the, I will get the path for that. I'm going to go to Documents, GitHub, copy as path. So the file that we want is this one, and we need to change the slashes. So let's do this. Server, and we wanna pass it to the directory that we just created, which is simple server. So let me take a look at this. We have the correct file, server.py, and we have, yeah, this looks good. Let's see. So I fixed what happened, and what happened was that we were connected to the server. So I simply ran exit, and now we are back in our computer. So let me clear this. So again, we wanna transfer this file right here, the server code. So let me copy and paste that command. And we see that now it works. So I will launch another git bash terminal, and this will be connected to the server. So let's run. So I'm connected to the server, so let me clear that. And now if we do ls, we see that we have the folder simple server. If I go into that one, we now see that we have the Python file, and if I want to inspect that, we see that we in fact have this file right here. So let's start the server. So just make sure that we have Python. Yes, we do. So now I will do Python 3, and I'm going to start the server. And again, we see that the server is ready to receive. So let's open Visual Studio, and let's try to connect with that server. So we do python.client. And what is happening here, right? So we see that the connection is taking a lot of time. We are in fact here. And what happens is that we have firewall rules set in place. So we are not allowing anything into the server. So we need to go ahead and modify the security rules. So if we see here, we are only allowing TCP on port 22, that's for the SSH. So we need to allow port 12,000 in order to be able to communicate with that. So let's go in here, let's edit the inbound rules. I'm going to, this is for custom TCP, port will be 12,000, and I want to be able to access it from anywhere. TCP rule for example. I'm going to save the rule, and now if we try again, let me clear this. We see that now in fact we are connected, and if we try, the server is responding with the appropriate message now. That's all I wanted to share in this video. We saw how to set up a very simple server in AWS and how to communicate with it from our computer. In the next following videos, I will grow into more complex examples, and I will eventually deploy a fully functioning website. But stay tuned for those. Thanks.